What's the status update today?
We're T-minus
Hey guys,
2
welcome
hours,
to
43
SpaceX
minutes
launch.
and counting down for the launch of Falcon 9 with Dragon to the space station.
So Falcon 9
As you see, the Dragon launch pad team has obviously arrived at the pad. They got there shortly after T-minus 4 hours. Open up the
History
side
of
hatch
first
on
time
Dragon.
private company
Get ready for the arrival of the astronauts.
human चढेको rocket launch गर्दैछ हैन
So सागर के भन्न छ तिमीलाई यो लन्चको बारेमा? So आखिर त सागर
लन्चको बारेमा चाहिँ एकदम हिस्टोरी भयो हैन कुनै पनि प्राइभेट कम्पनीले चाहिँ फर्स्ट टाइम हो सेट गरेको नत्र भने नासा यिनीहरुको गभर्नमेन्ट अर्गनाइजेसनहरुले मात्र गर्न सक्दैन स्पेस एक्स सब हाम्रो इलन मस्कको कम्पनीले चाहिँ हिस्ट्री रच्दैछ प्राइभेट सेक्टरबाट ह्युमनलाई नै स्पेसमा पठाएर
ल यसरी नै ह्युमनलाई नै स्पेसमा पठाएर लन्च गर्दैछ यो चाहिँ फर्स्ट टाइम भन्दा पनि 6 वर्षपछि पहिलोचोटि अमेरिकाले होस्ट गर्दैछ हैन किनभने अहिलेभन्दा अगाडि इन्टरनेसनल स्पेस स्टेसनमा चाहिँ अमेरिकाले आफ्नो कन्ट्रीको एस्ट्रोनटलाई पनि हैन आफ्नो नासाको सर्भिसबाट पठाउनु पाएको थिएन के उनीहरूले चाहिँ फरेन कन्ट्री जस्तो क्यानाडा अनि तिम्रो के अरे रसियाको फ्लाइटबाट पठाउनु पर्थ्यो के स्पेस मिसनमा हैन यो चाहिँ 6 वर्षपछि पहिलोचोटि स्पेस एक्स र नासा कोल्याबोरेट गरेर आफ्नो दुईटा एस्ट्रोनट बब र डगलाई चाहिँ स्पेस इन्टरनेसनल स्पेस स्टेसन आइएसएस मा चाहिँ पठाउँदैछ है सो तिमीलाई स्पेस इन्टरनेसनल स्पेस स्टेसनको बारेमा केही थाहा छ एक्स्ट्रा नलेज अबाउट इन्टरनेसनल स्पेस स्टेसन
यो चाहिँ अब नाम सुन्दै थाहा भयो हैन लन्च गर्ने काम चाहिँ अमेरिकाले गरेको हैन इन्टरनेसनली अब सबै एस्ट्रोनटहरुको अब एयरपोर्ट जस्तो भनौँ न चाहिँ ल्यान्ड गर्ने
त्यो पनि हो इन्टरनेसनल स्पेस स्टेसन भनेको के हो भन्दा इन्टरनेसनल स्पेस स्टेसन भनेको यो चाहिँ पृथ्वीको माथिपट्टि हैन त्यो घुमिरहेछ के एउटा स्याटेलाइट जसरी के त्यो चाहिँ एउटा मोजुलर स्याटेलाइट हो के इन्टरनेसनल स्पेस स्टेसन भनेको आफैमा है भनेको त्यो स्याटेलाइटको चाहिँ मोड्युल हुन्छ र गएर एट्याच गर्ने हो त्यहाँ चाहिँ सबै कन्ट्रीको एस्ट्रोनटहरु जान पाउँछ इन्टरनेसनल स्पेस स्टेसन सायद कसैले ओन गरेछ होला मलाई चाहिँ त्यस्तो लाग्छ सो
मैले नासेको हो जस्तो लाग्छ
मेनली होला हैन सो अब त्यो इन्टरनेसनल स्पेस स्टेसनबाट तिम्रो वेदर स्याटेलाइटदेखि लिएर सबैहरू चाहिँ कन्ट्रोल हुन्छ स्पेसको सबै चिज उहाँकोबाट कन्ट्रोल हुन्छ है
मैले सुने अनुसार चाहिँ अब नासाले नि यसले आफै के अब एस्ट्रोनटहरु स्पेसमा पठाउन चाहिँ त्यो भन्दा चाहिँ अब प्राइभेट अब हिस्ट्री हैन स्पेस एक्ससँग कोलाबोरेट गरेर अहिले पठाउँदैछ हैन अनि फ्युचरमा चाहिँ नासाले नि आफैले लन्च नगरेर प्राइभेट सेक्टरलाई नै
But also when he founded the company, we were a very small company for several years, and so we had to look for opportunities to, hey, how do you go from being a small company to actually putting people into orbit? So when NASA came out with the need to fly cargo to and from the International Space Station, we jumped on that because we said, hey, first, not only is carrying cargo to and from the space station cool, I bet we could actually then fly people to the International Space Station. And hey, for 8 years now we've been flying cargo, and then now we have transitioned over into flying crew and cargo together. So that's basically been the evolution of Dragon, and it's been awesome.
So अब ड्रैगनको कुरा थियो भर्खर हैन सो ड्रैगन भनेको चाहिँ जुनमा यिनीहरु क्याप्सुलमा जाँदैछ
very familiar with the first stage coming back down and how cool that looks. Dragon is also designed with some reusability. In fact, you've flown Dragon multiple times, or you've flown Dragons multiple times to the space station. How does reusability factor into Dragon's life cycle?
Yeah, so I'll actually talk a little bit about both, because one thing I think everyone always thinks about reusability and, hey, it saves money, or that's great, but reusability actually improves your reliability. So when we get Falcons back and when we get Dragons back, either after one mission or multiple missions, we can do all these detailed inspections on that. And that's super important because when you fly a vehicle, you can only have so many sensors on it. You can't put a sensor, every single inch of a rocket or a spacecraft.
Way more than I think anybody realizes.
Exactly. But so, especially for rockets that wind up in the ocean, some people don't have any idea of what they actually went through. So the fact that we get all the hardware back, we were able to inspect literally every square inch of it and make small design changes, that actually improve reliability for the whole fleet. So even though Bob and Doug are on a brand new rocket and a brand new spacecraft, those spacecraft are actually more reliable based on the knowledge we've learned from reusability.
We've walked people through a lot of the new systems on Dragon, what are just some of the cool things that are maybe beneath the surface that people don't know about with Dragon.
I think one of the coolest things is the autonomous docking. What that is
अब कस्तो भयो एटमोस्फियरिक प्रेसर कहाँनिर कस्तो थियो कुन ग्यासले कस्तो असर पारेको थियो अक्सिडाइज भएको थियो कि नै भन्ने कुरा त थाहा भएन नि त हामीलाई त हैन र अब कसरी माइनर ट्रिक्सहरु गरेर राम्रो कुरा होइन त
गल्तीहरुलाई त थाहा हुँदैन नि गल्ती नै नहेरिकन अब सिधै नयाँ बनाएर त
गर्दैन सो तिमीले शेयर हाल्यौ यो
And then that feeds into the flight computer, which has algorithms written by our engineers to say, okay, based on how far away you are in your rates, here's how you fire the thrusters to most effectively get to the docking target. I think that's just super cool.
Well, I mean, we're all waiting for our cars to drive ourselves to work, and for Bob and Doug, that's exactly what it's doing for them.
Exactly. And what I think is so cool is the computer does this just like flawlessly. It's easy. When I tried to do it, I failed miserably. I tried to dock Dragon to the ISS 3 times and I failed. 4th time I got it. And I will tell the public out there that on our website we actually have a Dragon ISS simulator, so you yourself can try and fire the thrusters and see how well you do. Maybe I'm just a bad driver, but I think the flight computer does a really good job.
I think we all had fun with it. All right, well, we are just starting to hear. They're going to start up those comm checks with Bob and Doug.
CDR, PLT, comm check.
So let's listen in.
CDR, loud and clear. PLT, loud and clear.
Core, loud and clear. Umbilical comm check.
ल हेरौँ त्यो रकेटको साइज हेरौँ के कति ठुलो छ Falcon 9 है so it's one of the biggest rocket that SpaceX ever made. यो चाहिँ rocket चाहिँ officially it's made by SpaceX. The platform they are flying on is of NASA.
That's good.
And again, we're just listening in. They're doing these comm check, these communication checks.
So
Bob and Doug are going to do a series of these checkouts with the teams on the ground, both the core
ground को team र
उसको
space satellite को team को बीचमा चाहिँ communication
भइरहेछ. And they're going to be doing this over Dragon to ground. And they're also going to be doing it over the countdown net. Those are the 2 main loops or nets that you're going to hear going out. And they're going to be doing it through their different communications paths. We heard them do through the TDRS, or the tracking data and relay satellites. Those are those primary satellites that were going to be used to talk to Bob and Doug throughout their flight and to send commands to Dragon. They'll also do it through ground stations. SpaceX has a worldwide network of ground stations that they're able to communicate with the vehicle. And that's what
सायद उनीहरु 140 हप्ता जति बस्छन् 140 हप्ता हैन 140 दिन हो कि कति बस्छन् उनीहरु सायद
ISS. Tuned in the other day, this is one of the first things that they do once they get inside the vehicle, and this is just to make sure all the communication systems with the Dragon spacecraft, with the suits, everything are working. They're able to talk to and hear everybody on the ground.
Dragon, SpaceX, comm check, ground stations.
SpaceX Dragon, loud and clear.
Core, loud and clear, ground station.
एउटा के यिनीहरुको नामको जोक के दुईटाको नाम कुकुरको जस्तो छ के एउटाको त डग भने डगै भइहाल्यो अर्कोको नाम बब छ के सो एउटा कुरा ख्याल गरेर चाहिँ सागर यिनीहरुको स्पेस सुट हेर्दा के जस्तो पहिलाको जुन एस्ट्रोनटहरुको स्पेस सुट हुन्थ्यो हैन एकदम हेभी हुन्थ्यो नि हैन ठुलो बल्की हेलमेटले कस्तो गोलो हुन्थ्यो अहिलेको एकदम सिम्पल छ यो भनेको एडभान्समेन्ट इन टेक्नोलोजी Elon Musk as the man who is living in 2030
यो मान्छे कलेज पनि गर्ने आफै पढि
Oh hello Sambat, thank okay, let's join है
Dragon, SpaceX, comm check, TDRS.
SpaceX Dragon, loud and clear.
Core, loud and clear. TDRS comm check complete. Stand by with comm checks with MD and LD in the launch configuration.
Dragon, MD on countdown 1.
He's launching a rocket लेख्ने कि question के लेख्दिनुस्
launching of rocket रकेटको लन्च हुँदैछ हैन
मेरो के यसमा तिम्रो सेयर गर्दैन
Copy, loud and clear.
फर्स्ट टाइम एभर इन
Glad to
द
have you guys on
हिस्ट्री
board.
अफ प्राइभेट अमेरिकन
Stand by for
एरोस्पेस
comm check
म्यानुफ्याक्चरर एन्ड
on
स्पेस
Dragon Ground.
ट्रान्सफर्मेसन कम्पनी स्पेस एक्स लन्चिङ अ रकेट लेखेको कि के लेखेको
Dragon, MD, Dragon Ground, comm check.
हेलो
MD Dragon, loud and clear.
MD, loud and clear. Stand by for comm checks with LD.
Dragon, launch director on countdown 1, comm check.
Good afternoon, Mike. Loud and clear.
I have you the same, and good afternoon. Stand by for my comm check on Dragon Ground. Dragon SpaceX on Dragon Ground, comm check.
SpaceX Dragon, loud and clear.
I have you the same. Back to core.
And Dragon SpaceX, this concludes our launch configuration comm checks. Report when ready for seat rotation per section 2 of 4.100.
Dragon, I'll put that in work.
Copy.
Hello. Yes.
All right, so all those communications checks were done successfully, and you could even see, and it's so cool when we get these views right inside the cabin.
That's good.
SpaceX Dragon in 2.2, we are ready for seat rotation.
Copy. We will report when initiating.
But you could see Doug Hurley using his right hand. He has the talk button built into the seat itself. So just, again, showing you all of the different systems, how the suit is integrated into the seat, and it's all just one big circle for this whole spacecraft. So really cool to see those comm checks live. Jessica, thank you so much for walking us through some of the really cool updates, the upgrades. Did you have any other cool stuff besides?
Let's see. So I don't know if you guys can see, but we have the Dragon clean room here. And one of the coolest things is it is right on the main floor of our main building. So thousands of employees walk by here all the time and get to see Dragon in its final processing before it goes to the Cape. On Wednesday, the Crew 1 capsule was in here. It looked almost done. It looks a little empty right now, but that's because that capsule went off into our separate test facility for its final propulsion checks. So we do leak checks and things there, and we do that in a separate facility just because it's high-pressure testing. And then the vehicle will come back here, get its final thermal protection system put on, and then it will ship off to Cape Canaveral and get ready to launch 4 astronauts to the International Space Station.
I mean, what's it like to see it? Because when you see the first initial pressure vessel, it looks nothing like the final thing. So what's it like to just kind of watch it go through, and you just see little bits get added on, and then the next thing you know, it's a whole spacecraft?
Yeah, I mean, that's what's so amazing. I'm so impressed. You know, when you look at a machine, you're like, how does this ever get built? How do people ever do this? And it really is just step by step, one piece at a time. Each piece has its critical function, and you get to watch that being built right in front of your eyes every day when you come to work.
SpaceX, we
an
are ready
engineer, whatever you do here.
Dragon copies.
And we just heard the seat rotations about to begin. So, Jessica, thank you so much. Cool facts about Dragon for everyone to listen in on, and we can see the seats start to rotate now. Pretty soon, Bob and Doug will be in their launch configuration, and they'll be ready to go. And we can see the seats slowly start to rotate. Again, they're in this down position just to make it easier to climb in and out of Dragon. They'll rotate to this launch position to put their backs a little bit more parallel to the ground. It makes taking the G-force a little bit easier for the crew on the way uphill, but most importantly, positions those touchscreens directly in front of them, which is just their gateway into Dragon.
Dragon SpaceX, seats are in the launch position.
We copy.
All right, and confirmation the seats are in the launch position. Let's go down now to Gary in Mission Control Houston, where I know the entire JSC team is standing by and ready to see Dragon take flight today. Over to you, Gary.
NEPALI.
Thanks, Dan. Very much so. Great to see good comm checks from Bob and Doug, and that their seats have been rotated into their launch position. Here in Houston, Flight Director Zeb Scoville has pulled space station flight controllers, and all systems are go for launch from the space station side of things. Essentially, the station is prepared for Dragon to arrive 19 hours after launch. Chris Cassidy has completed his preparations for Bob and Doug to arrive. He's got a chance to view
Actually, network engineers the bhana system admin.
He has completed his preparations for
तिमी अलि ठुलै कम्पनीमा एडमिन के रे नेटवर्क
works out good for today's launch.
सिस्टम
I mean,
एडमिन
people
काम
online
गर्यो
are on
भने
the edge
यति
of their
देख्नु
seats.
पाउँछ त्यो
We just checked numbers, and we are up to 1.1 million viewers right now. That's almost double when we checked last time. And right now, we also have Columbia, South Carolina is leading the viewership. So interesting to see how that changes. Let's take a broader look at the conversation online with this heat map of the United States. Now, this shows Launch America mentions by state over the past week, and we have California leading right now with the most mentions, and I'm very surprised. I really thought the Space Coast would take it home, but let's see how this changes over the course of the broadcast. Let's see what y'all are posting online right now. Guys. Love to just see how people are making things creative for this launch, really making it their own, putting their personal touch on it. Let's take a look at another. Oh, we are back to the Launch America Heat mentions, so let's see how that changes over the course of this broadcast. But really fun to see those photos online. Oh, we have another space pet, guys. These do not get old, so please use hashtag Launch America on social media. Right now, it looks like we have Catstronaut Boris, who is ready for his launch in the Crew Dragon capsule. I love seeing the pet owners unite for this mission. So like I said, definitely use that hashtag. We will be looking for it during the show. Marie, what's the latest at Kennedy?
Thanks to Hero, we are at T-minus 2 hours, 26 minutes, 47 seconds and counting on liftoff of the Falcon 9 from the Kennedy Space Center here in Florida, carrying NASA astronauts Doug Hurley and Bob Behnken. You see them right now aboard SpaceX's Crew Dragon spacecraft. It's been a very exciting day so far. The crew has been up since about 8 o'clock this morning as they prepare to head to the International Space Station as part of this Demo 2 mission for NASA.
And as we speak, the astronauts, as you saw, are inside Dragon and have completed their comm checks, so now they can communicate with the teams here on the ground. And their seats have rotated upright to launch positions, allowing them to see and access the display panel. And now they are about to initiate their own suit leak checks to make sure that their seat is in proper working condition before liftoff.
And in just a little bit, at about T-minus 1 hour, 55 minutes, it could happen a little bit sooner, though. We're running a little bit ahead of schedule. We will see the closeout team begin to close the side hatch in preparation for flight. And that's going to be one of the key visual milestones on the timeline to liftoff. Now, we want to take you to a couple of special guests we have joining us. They are with Daryl Nail at the OSB-2 viewing location, NASA Administrator Jim Bridenstine, and also Kennedy Space Center Director Bob Cabana is there with Daryl. Hi, Daryl.
Hi, Marie. That's right. We're in the 5th floor of the Operations and Support Building here at the Kennedy Space Center with a nice view of Launch Complex 39. And the two men that you mentioned are here to join me to answer a few questions. We're excited to have them both here. And they are, of course, Bob Cabana, the director of the Kennedy Space Center, and Jim Bridenstine, administrator for NASA. Gentlemen, thanks again for making the time to be here. Of course, the big story right now is the weather. So let's talk a little bit about that. We can see there's some clouds building. That was forecast. You took part in a weather briefing this morning. What do you know about the weather and the decision that was made to say, hey, let's give this another shot today?
Yeah, so what got us last time was the electricity in the atmosphere, and of course today there are in fact buildups. It doesn't look like there are thunderstorms at this time. The question is, when do those thunderstorms go away, and when those thunderstorms materialize, where are they located? We are predicting about a 50-50 shot of going this time, but given the fact that we are in late May in Florida, we have to take every shot we can get. So it's not likely that in a couple of days it's going to be any better than it is today. So we are a go for launch right now, and we are hoping that the weather will hold up. We almost made it on Wednesday, and the trend is better today than it was on Wednesday. So we'll see.
And I saw a forecast that said the clearing is supposed to happen right around 3 o'clock in the afternoon. So
that's right.
we're hoping that
launches at 3:22, clearing at the earliest 3 o'clock, at the latest 3:30. So depending on when that happens, we'll either be go or no go. But again, we're going to take every shot we've got.
Also watching the downrange weather for a potential rescue in case there were an abort.
That's right. So, we have these staging areas. When we go from the first stage to the second stage, that's a higher risk evolution. We want to make sure that in the case we have to exercise the launch abort at that point, that the weather is good. And, of course, that's off the coast of North Carolina. The big thing there is it's great that we have a launch abort capability. The challenge is that launch abort capability includes parachutes. And with parachutes, you've got to make sure that you've got the weather to come down. If there are thunderstorms or downbursts or high winds, that's problematic for the parachute system.
Right, and sea states as well, bouncing that capsule around in the ocean. Bob, of course, you're an astronaut. You know what it's like to hit the reset button and do it all over again. Get into the spacecraft, get ready to go, only to be told, no, we're not going to go today. What's that like? And tell me about the mindset as you have to kind of reset. Do you feel less anxious? Do you feel more comfortable the second time around?
You know, Daryl, first off, my last flight, we counted down to 18 seconds and didn't go. Man, and when you get to 18 seconds, you're ready. The key is, it's the training that we go through. All the repetition that we do, we practice everything, including scrubs. And just because you didn't launch doesn't mean you don't have something to do. So you got to go through those back-out procedures. It's all done very professionally. Then it was out of the vehicle and into the Astrovan, back to crew quarters. And we had a positive attitude. We got a good night's rest. And we went through it again. It's a matter of doing your job. These guys are well prepared. It's all part of what we do.
Yeah, they stopped the count at 17 minutes, but you had it all the way up to just a few seconds. It's a big difference.
The weather was bad the first time. I was kind of glad with the vehicle that they later sorted out. As it turned out, we wouldn't have had enough prop to rendezvous with the Russian functional cargo block. But the next night, it was just a perfectly smooth launch count. Everything just went like clockwork, and it set the stage for an awesome mission.
I think you told the press before you walked out, I think you were over there at astronaut crew quarters, we're going today.
I just got a feeling, you got to have a positive attitude. I watched a lot of weather down here supporting shuttle missions, and I'm hoping that those clouds over the I-95 corridor, that the Indian River keeps them west of us, and that stuff that's building offshore is far enough off that we can stay in an open window here at the Cape.
Good. Well, we got your positive vibe going, and we appreciate that. Jim, when you were down in the astronaut crew quarters and when they were suiting up, you got a second chance to visit with the astronauts. Kind of tell us about that, and what was their demeanor, what was their mood today?
So, again, they seem loose. They were loose last time. They're loose this time. They're definitely ready to go. They're excited. They've been wanting to go for a long time now. I'll tell you, one thing that I thought was a little interesting is, Bob Behnken was making fun of Doug Hurley because on Doug's last flight, they scrubbed 5 times before launching on the 6th time. So Bob Behnken seems to think that Doug Hurley is the problem in this case. But to see them joking about that as they're getting suited up, ready to go, yes, they're trained, they're ready, but they're also loose, and that's good to see because they're going to have to be on their game when we launch.
These guys are pretty impressive. Doug Hurley and Bob Behnken. Doug Hurley, an incredible pilot. Bob Behnken, he's got a PhD in mechanical engineering.
He's a flight test engineer himself in the Air Force. Yeah.
Well, in your assessment, why are these guys the right stuff?
Well, this is a test flight, and we have great astronauts that are chemists. We have great astronauts that are botanists. We have really talented and diverse, a very very diverse astronaut corps in general. But this is a test flight, and for a test flight, what do you want? For a living. They have made a living flying new things that have never been flown before, and Bob Behnken and Doug Hurley are the 2 people that you would want in a test flight, and that's exactly what this is.
Bob, you're a pilot too. You want to weigh in on Doug Hurley? He seems like he's got the right mentality and a smooth customer.
He's a naval aviator, a marine pilot, a test pilot. I'm all in. He's a great guy.
Yeah. And tell me a little bit about in terms of the Kennedy Space Center, right? So You've been here since 2007, right?
2008.
2008, sorry, off by 1 year. 2011, Atlantis came to a wheel stop. Yeah, I grew up here. My dad, when that wheel stop happened, the next day, my uncle got the layoff notice, right? And it 30, 60 days. It was depressing. We're talking about thousands of people.
Atlantis landed on a Thursday. On Friday, 2,000 contractors got pink slips and walked out the door. Yet they worked on that vehicle. That was the best vehicle we ever flew, the cleanest. That's the dedication of the workforce here.
Right. So, and take me back to that time. You called it a depressing time. You know, the fact that the shuttle program was something that the government completely had ownership of and paid for. Now we're moving into this commercial crew, which you've overseen making that transition. And tell me about that 9 years in which we made that move.
Well, obviously, everybody was really attached to the shuttle. I mean, it was our history for 30 years. It did an awesome job. The Hubble Space Telescope, all the satellites it deployed, building the International Space Station. But when I first got here, I told everybody the shuttle program's going to end. We have to start preparing for our future. And nobody wanted to hear that. But how many times in your life do you get to define what you want your future to be? And we set out on this bold goal of trying to turn KSC into a multi-user spaceport, supporting both government and commercial operations. And I've got a very persistent team. They worked extremely hard. And through a number of agreements, you know, we were able to make it happen. And this is the future. Commercial spaceflight, you know, the administrator says it all the time. We want to establish a commercial environment in low Earth orbit so that we can focus on the hard job of exploring beyond our home planet, to establish that presence in our solar system beyond planet Earth, establish a sustained presence on the moon, get to Mars, establish a presence there. We can't do that if we're locked here in low Earth orbit. And commercial crew with both SpaceX and Boeing, that's the beginning of a whole new era of spaceflight.
All right, very good. Quick question. We've got, of course, a special guest coming back today. The President of the United States plans on being here. Jim, you took him around the first time around. How did that go? I think I saw a picture on Twitter. He signed some space hardware.
That's right. So he took a look at the Orion crew capsule. Of course, the Orion for Artemis 1 is ready to go. And he signed, you know, a piece of hardware that will fly on the crew capsule for Artemis 2. So that's kind of, and not just him, but the First Lady and the Vice President and the Second Lady, they all signed it. So their names are going to fly around the moon on Artemis 2, which is exciting. But I just want to give Colonel Cabana a compliment here, because he did bring this spaceport through a very difficult time. And now it is a multi-use spaceport, and we do have commercial, and we have, in fact, even international launches here. And now we're going to have commercial crew launches. Bob has done a wonderful job transforming this spaceport. That's why we're doing commercial crew. NASA wants to be one customer of many customers. We want to have numerous providers that are competing on cost, innovation, safety, driving down costs, increasing access. But even better today, when I took this job just a few short years ago, you know, our budget at NASA was around $19 billion. The budget request that President Trump gave us for next year is $25 billion. We are in a great position because the president is committed to space exploration. Of course, he's committed to the Space Force. We haven't had this much support for space since John F. Kennedy, and we've got bipartisan support. Everybody wants to see the Artemis program be successful. Everybody wants to see not just the next man, but the first woman on the moon, and that's what we're building here.
Yeah, it's key to it all is that bipartisan support, and of course, what the work that Bob's been doing here. You can see the commercial activity all around this place. We're going to get to some questions on social media real quick that our audience wants to find out. So the first question is from James on Twitter, and he asks, what is the hardest part of going to space? And we're going to have to give that question to Bob.
Well, Daryl, you know, nothing's hard if you prepare for it. And what we are afraid of is stuff we don't have knowledge about. And that's what we do when we learn how to be astronauts. We train, okay? You spend a long time as an astronaut candidate learning. You spend a long time preparing for a mission. For an International Space Station mission, training around the world on all the different modules and everything, you know, it's like 2.5 years of training before you get on orbit for that time to actually do your work. So I'd have to say the hardest part is the preparation for it. But you are so prepared when you go. You just have total confidence. You know that you are very well trained for what you're going to do. You have an outstanding team on the ground supporting you, and that is so important to have that ground support as you climb into that vehicle. You know that they've done their very best to ensure your safety and a successful mission. But after that, it's a piece of cake, except no simulator on Earth can prepare you for what those guys are going to feel. It's better than a cat shot off an aircraft carrier.
I believe it. Maybe one day I'll get to try. The commercialization effort means we want everybody to be able to fly into space. That's the goal.
It's a great point about preparation, because that's not the highly visible part. The launch is, and so it's good to know that all that preparation leads to that confidence. By the way, just an update operationally, they're getting ready to close the hatch door. You can see on your screen there, the workers there are getting ready to get that closed, and working on that right there with Doug Hurley and Bob Binken on the inside of Crew Dragon. Our next question is from Mathis on Twitter, and he asks, what kind of operations will the astronauts do between the liftoff and docking with the International Space Station? I know you pay a lot of attention, Jim, to the operations, especially of this mission.
You bet.
What do you know about that?
So there's a number of things. The first thing that they have to do is, of course, we've got a number of burns to get in phase with the International Space Station. We've got some boost burns as well. We're talking about, operating the rocket engine to get in alignment with the space station. But I'll tell you, the biggest thing that we need the astronauts to do once they get on orbit and before they dock is rest. We need them to eat, we need them to rest, we need them to be prepared for that docking. Once they are in the range of the International Space Station, they're going to start maneuvering the spacecraft themselves. Not automatic, but they're going to do it themselves. They are in fact test pilots, and as test pilots they will test fly this vehicle to make sure that it operates as advertised. And of course then they will dock with the International Space Station. And a unique capability here is it's automatic rendezvous and automatic docking, and so we're going to be able to see that for the first time as well.
That's going to be exciting to see. Thank you for sharing that with us. Jim Bridenstine, Administrator of NASA, Bob Cabana, Director of the Kennedy Space Center, thank you both for joining us. And we're going to send it back to Marie in the studio.
All right, thanks a lot, Daryl and Mr. Bridenstine and Mr. Cabana for joining us. You can see some clouds starting to gather over Launch Complex 39A. We're keeping a close eye on weather. Again, 50% chance of launching today. We just got to see what the weather's going to do. A little bit ago, we heard the crew complete their comm checks live on the air. We saw their seats rotate. That helps get them into a little bit more comfortable position for the G-forces during launch. And more importantly, it helps them be in a better position to interact with the screens in front of them. They completed their suit leak checks. We saw during the interview just a few minutes ago the hatch begin to close. And so inside the white room there, the pad closeout team is in there still doing some work. That hatch close is, it's not as simple as just closing a car door. There's a process to seal it and check it and make sure that everything is sealed properly. Right, Lauren?
Yeah, that's correct. If they haven't already started, one thing that will be coming up next is the leak check. What they'll do is they'll attach a piece of ground support equipment. They don't have it in their hands right now, so it looks like it hasn't started yet. There it is. You can see it there. The closeout member number 5, it's already attached to the side hatch mechanism. And what they'll do is they're essentially checking for the leak rate. And they'll hold pressure there for a few minutes and then track that change in pressure over time to make sure that it's within bounds, making sure that you don't have any issues with those O-rings there that are holding that pressure. And so once they complete that leak check, they will then do what is the called the installation of, or the final installation of the SPEP, or side pressure equalization plug. That's basically a plug that once the capsule splashes down, what you'll do is actually remove that, and what it does is equalizes pressure across the hatch. So once that thing is plugged in, you know that everything is super tight and that you shouldn't have any leaks on orbit.
One of the other things that I think is pretty cool about Dragon, you can kind of see them on the edges there are some of the windows. And I know that Dragon started out as it was Cargo Dragon. You have your cargo version, and before you moved on to the Crew Dragon version, but you even had windows on the cargo version. Can you explain kind of why that was?
Yeah, the very first cargo Dragon that we ever launched had a window over the hatch, over the side hatch. And the reason we did that is we've always envisioned Dragon to ultimately be a crewed vehicle. So even in the beginning, for the very first vehicle we ever made, which didn't even really carry much cargo, we put that window there, and it to us symbolizes what Dragon's purpose has been all along. You know, taking those steps, starting off with the CRS program and resupplying the space station with experiments and food and crew provisions for the astronauts on board, to now putting putting NASA's astronauts in our own vehicle. It's that natural progression to what we were aiming for the whole time.
Mm-hmm. And Leland, what's your take on the touchscreen technology? We saw a little bit about that. Obviously, this is a very different kind of look than what we saw during the space shuttle.
You know, it's the future. I mean, we had our LCD displays, and we had lots of buttons to press, and valves and switches. And I think this new technology will allow us to get through procedures much more much faster, because we had paper flight data file that we're having to turn to different pages and get to things. And I think this will make it much more efficient to go through your malfunctions and your procedures with the touchscreens. And I think having the gloves, being able to touch the screens and work within the gloves, everything's kind of sleek and efficient. There's not a lot of wires and things hanging off, and their knee boards, you can see their knee boards on their left knees. So that's for some extra little notes and things.
The hatch is closed now.
There's some commentary.
We are ready for the post-ingress briefing when you are ready to copy.
And we just heard confirmation on the loops that the hatch is closed. So that is a little bit ahead of schedule.
We are motivated to go today.
We're ready. Go ahead.
Okay, on the weather, we still have some rain showers moving through the area, but we do have a reasonable opportunity today, so we are proceeding into the count. We are going to take a look at both pad and ascent track weather at T-minus 1 hour and 30 minutes, and the next decision point will be prior to prop load.
Okay, we copy.
And on the vehicle health front, both F9 and Dragon health remains nominal with no items of note.
So we just heard the weather is still iffy.
Good news. Thank you.
The weather is still iffy.
This concludes the post-ingress brief. Report when ready for comm checks with Falcon 9 operators.
We are ready for the F9 operators.
Excellent.
Copy. Expect that shortly.
So when we hear that chatter pick back up, we're going to quiet right down so that you can listen into that along with us. But we just heard them discussing the weather briefly, still keeping an eye on that, but the next decision point is going to be before prop load. So we're going to press forward for now and then reevaluate before we start fueling the rocket. But in the meantime, it sounds like Falcon 9 and Crew Dragon are healthy, so the vehicle's in good shape, right? It sounds like kind of a little bit of a repeat from Wednesday, that we're just keeping an eye on the weather at this point.
You can see on their left
International station by the live
comm checks with F9, you can expect it in about 1 to 2 minutes.
Dragon's ready.
All right, on their left legs there, they have these satchels that are strapped to their legs. Inside are some crew provisions, including these tablets that you see that they have displayed there.
You say, Lauren, those are tablets versus just keyboards that they can write
on? Or the tablets are inside.
Oh, they're inside.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. And so when would they pull those tablets out to use them?
During the mission,
okay.
while on orbit.
Okay.
And I don't know if it's coming, if the background noise is coming through over the air, but we hear the rain really picking up outside the studio here. So I'm kind of wondering if Bob and Doug are hearing the sounds of the rain clouds opening up over the pad. Looks like it's still kind of patchy out there. But again, we were following some thunderstorms that look like they may be making their way over here. It kind of looks like it's raining from that view. It's a little bit hard to tell through the haze.
All right, launch is now just over 2 hours away. Tahira, you are there with the social teams. Now that the hatch is closed and the rain's picking up and all kinds of exciting things are going on right now as we count down and get into the last 2 hours of the count, I bet things are getting pretty interesting on social media.
Hey, Lauren. I mean, yes, they are. So many different things are going on right now, and I think people online are just wondering what's going to happen with today's mission. I have TweetDeck open right now, and it is just scrolling with the conversation of people around the nation talking about today's launch attempt. We also just checked viewership, and we are now up to 1.4 million people watching this live broadcast, so really hope things look good with weather. And on that note, let's take a look at some of the things being said on Twitter right now. So it looks like, we just have some more future astronauts. I really love seeing the young generation just getting mobilized, getting excited about today's mission. Looks like we've also got some Godspeed and safe travels for both astronauts today. Really do wish them the best of luck on the second attempt. Hope it happens. Some throwback photos, all from people visiting NASA's centers, and also just let's do this. I love this can-do attitude, and I just love seeing that people are still keeping the energy alive for today's launch. So there were obviously some disappointing reactions to Wednesday's scrub, but let's take a look at how people are getting excited for today's attempt. Let's roll.
Ready for takeoff. Ready to launch America. 3, 2, 1, go! Ready for liftoff? Infinity and beyond!
I mean, how fun is that video? I think I will definitely have to attempt the worm after this, but just really glad to see everyone in good spirits leading into today's second launch attempt. And I really hope everybody will have something to smile about. And with that, let's head back to Lauren.
Thanks to hear it. So it looks like people are pretty stoked about today's attempt. Please continue to join the conversation by using the hashtag LaunchAmerica across all the social media channels.
Yeah, I really love seeing the little kids get excited. You're like, I emailed you guys the worm ball, and I was like, what is this? I'm having a hard time seeing it, but what is the worm ball?
So it's a NASA meatball, which is, what it should be.
Yes.
Okay, look at it. There it is.
All right, thank you. I need a visual.
So they took the angular NASA logo and put in the worm inside of the meatball. Can you live with that, Lauren?
You know what? That's a beautiful compromise. I'll take it. I'll take it.
It's a nice marriage of the two.
Oh, I love you, man.
Yeah, truth. And there is another live look at Launch Complex 39A, and we have had the opportunity to share with you a lot about the SpaceX Crew Dragon sitting on top of Falcon 9, a lot about the crew themselves, and the significance of today as the official return, we hope, of human launch capability to American shores. But we would be remiss if we did not explain why this pad 39A is hallowed ground.
We're go. Hang tight. We're go. Altitude, velocity light.
Story missions began their daring journey from the exact same spot on Earth. Launch Complex 39A at the Kennedy Space Center. This massive structure of steel and concrete has cradled rockets and guided each on their fiery ascent to space for over 50 years. There can be no launch without a launch pad, and this hallowed ground has a history greater than any other. Having evolved and been reshaped for each new era of spaceflight, it's alive with a heartbeat as strong as the first. Launch Pad 39A came to life under the direction of project engineer Harry May as NASA ramped up its efforts to achieve an unprecedented calling.
Why, some say the moon. Why choose this as our goal? And they may well ask, why climb the highest mountain?
In 1962, Earth-moving machines sculpted its massive pyramid base to a height of 40 feet. Then, concrete was poured to hold it in place. To launch the world's first moon rocket, engineers cut a flame trench nearly the length of 2 football fields down the middle of the mound. It was then lined with heat-resistant bricks to deflect 7.5 million pounds of earth-rattling thrust, first felt on Apollo 8. Less than a year later, Apollo 11 launched from Pad 39A. And hundreds of millions of people around the world watched as it landed on the moon 3 days later. Nearly a decade after this Apollo era, 39A again took center stage with a new, one-of-a-kind spacecraft, the Space Shuttle. Millions of pounds of additional steel for surface structures transformed the look, but not the purpose: human spaceflight. In all, 82 space shuttles blasted off from 39A until the very last.
Start. T-minus 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5. All 3 engines up and burning. 2, 1, 0, and liftoff. The final liftoff of Atlantis on the shoulders of the space shuttle. America will continue the dream.
Roger, roll, Atlantis.
With the fleet retired, demolition crews removed the shuttle-era hardware to clear the way for NASA's monumental decision to lease this historic launch site to the private company SpaceX. Today, its sleek and modern design supports a family of rockets that has advanced the commercial age of American spaceflight. Now, 50 years after it first sent humans to the moon, this historic spaceport stands ready for the next wave of human exploration.
And we're looking live again at Pad 39A. We're looking at the pad closeout team. You can identify them by their numbers there, and we heard confirmation of the hatch being closed just a few minutes ago. So again, things a little bit ahead of schedule. And when I say ahead of schedule, I don't mean the launch time is changing. I just mean some of the specific milestones in the timeline. Those times are a little bit flexible, but that launch window remains instantaneous at 3:22 this afternoon. And Leland, you know, we just saw a piece about the history of Pad 39A.
All stations, Chief Engineer, and countdown 1 for comm check with the crew.
We're going to pause for that comm check.
Falcon 9, guidance, navigation, and control.
Dragon GNC on countdown 1, comm check.
GNC Dragon, we have you loud and clear.
GNC loud and clear. Stand by for
Motion साथै हो भने चाहिँ उल्ला हैन
Dragon prop on
चार्ज
countdown
50-50
1,
हुन्छ मलाई चाहिँ पनि
Prop Dragon, loud and clear.
Prop loud and clear. Stand by for comm check with the avionics engineer.
Dragon, avionics on countdown 1, comm check.
Avionics Dragon, loud and clear.
Avionics loud and clear. Stand by for comm check by ground segment engineer.
Dragon ground segment on countdown 1, comm check.
यहाँको चल्दै सिस्टम चाहिँ भन्दैछ
Ground segment loud and clear. Stand by for comm check by launch control.
Dragon, launch control on countdown 1, comm check.
Launch control, Dragon, loud and clear.
Launch control, loud and clear. Stand by for comm check by the chief engineer. Dragon, Chief Engineer on countdown 1, comm check.
Chief Engineer, Dragon, we've got you loud and clear, Bala.
Chief Engineer, loud and clear. This completes the Falcon 9 responsible engineer comm check.
And we just saw a thumbs up from Doug Hurley. We listened to a series of comms checks there, and so everything.
Dragon, Chief Engineer on Dragon to ground.
Loud and clear on Dragon to ground.
Loud and clear. Well, good luck, and let's see if the rain clears up.
That sentiment is shared by all here.
Do it.
Copy that.